Well, 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 would you look at that? Good. Good. Everything seems to be working in its proper place and order. Just doing a sound test before we actually get started. How's it going, everybody? Goodness. It's been a minute, right? If you are currently watching right now in the live stream, if you have come through on the Twitter link, make sure you share that out, UNGR_show on Twitter. Make sure that you retweet that, comment down below in the post there on Twitter. Make sure you say hi here in the chat. I would love to say hi to you guys. Oh, man. I know. It's been a minute, and I've been trying to do some stuff on Twitch, trying to get my Apex skills to its finest, and also collect my thoughts on the Falcons 2023 NFL Draft, as well as the current roster and how it's set up for success and for everything else that's been going on. Oh, man. What do you guys think, huh? Let's probably turn this music down, huh? Good to see Chris Edwards, Mr. Bellamy in the building, Dexter Vlash, Chad Phillips. Good to see you all in the chat. All right. Shall we get into it? Shall we talk about it? How's it going, everybody? It's your boy, Lieutenant Dan, here, live from Orlando, Florida, here with your Falcons 2023 NFL Draft review, as well as a few talking points about the current roster and kind of the schedule release and all of these other things. We're gonna have a heck of a discussion here. And I think it also kind of plays into a few other things as well, but, you know, we shall get to it as we get to it, huh? Right? What have you guys thought about the draft so far? Rose Stackson in the building. Good to see you, my man. Rise up, stay ground. I hope you're doing well. What did you guys think about the draft so far? Thought it was an interesting. I thought it was when I actually watched the draft live, and if you did tune in and watch the draft, then you probably got some excitement and disappointment and all those other things. But for me, it felt like it was planned. It was already set and done. That it was foretold almost to some degree. And I know some people out there were, oh, we're going to go this way or we're going to go that way, or, look at how many sacks we had these past couple of years. Look at how many 7 and 9 seasons we've had since, they've changed the schedule and all those good things. But I felt as if with the Falcons doing what they're doing, that it was foretold. It was already set in stone what Atlanta was going to end up doing. And yes, it got most Falcons fans riled up. It got most people distraught over the fact that we took a running back at 8. And especially in a guy like Bijan Robinson, who I think if you look at running backs over these last 15, 20 years, this is one of those guys that you go, he has all the intangibles, he has everything. But we'll get into that in just a minute. But more than anything, it kind of set the tone for Falcons fans' expectations. I think it really, really did set the tone for expectations. So let's turn this music off and let's get into the nitty-gritty, huh? Thank you guys for coming in. I really appreciate it. Make sure that you guys retweet the tweet out there for the show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, hit that noti. Make sure that you're notified of everything that we do here. And let's dive into the Atlanta Falcons 2023 NFL Draft and my thoughts on the NFL Draft as a whole for the Falcons and what this means for the Falcons as an organization, but also as a team hunting to try to win the NFC South, a division that has been up for grabs for quite a few years. So let's get into that. If you have a moment, make sure that you go into the live chat and say hi. I would love to say hi back. But let's get straight down to the nitty-gritty. Atlanta Falcons, round 1, pick 8, Bijan Robinson. I think most insiders at this point have discussed this pick to death. And they have talked specifically about, well, you took Kyle Pitts at the 4th pick overall almost 2-3 years ago. Then you take Drake London at 8 in the draft afterwards, preceding draft, and now you go and pick one of the best running backs that we've seen in the last 15 to 20 years in the first round be picked here at 8 in this particular draft. So you have a couple of question marks. The first question mark is you just had 1,000 yards. These are all the prerequisites that most of these analysts or these fantasy analysts or these draft analysts have been talking about for months. Is the Atlanta Falcons don't need a running back of Bijan Robinson's caliber, with the idea that Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson and Caleb Huntley have done the job for what it's worth. And most surface level searchers, most people that are looking at things from a surface level point of view, what is going to immediately impact a team, looked at the Atlanta Falcons and said, well, it has to be defense. Corner, edge, defensive tackle, linebacker. Not a good class for linebacker, actually. Wasn't a very good class to go get an impact guy at linebacker or at safety, to be honest. You heard guys like myself, or maybe guys like Aaron Freeman, or maybe you heard Rise Up Reader or the Falcoholic make a mention of guys like Brian Branch as a potential pickup because of just how important that slot corner position is to this defensive identity and how it works. But as long as Bijan Robinson was there, and I think it was just mentioned in the chat but just a few minutes ago, that as long as Bijan Robinson was there, that was going to be the guy. If you've watched the call to Bijan Robinson right before they were going to pick him, Arthur Smith, who is not one to show too much emotion, was the one grinning ear to ear, and Terry Fontenot was more of the business side. Answer the phone. Hey, this is how it's going. We're picking you. We're excited. This is what you're worth to us. This is what you're worth to the culture, the organization, the city. So when you look at a guy like Arthur Smith, who does not show emotion, is a very X and O's guy, is very much, this is how my system runs and how I want things to go and be done, you can't look at this and say that this was not an Arthur Smith pick. This is 110% Arthur Smith going, I got my guy. It was always going to be him unless something just absolutely miraculous happened and somebody fell into our laps. Bijan Robinson was the pick for the Atlanta Falcons at 8, and it was always going to be that way. And it confuffles and makes people upset and confused from the draftnik community or the fantasy community or the analysts out there, the draft analysts, or just team building guys from the letter networks or wherever they're making their current living and talking about this, is that you can't spot the Falcons and say, hey, that's a bad pick, because it's not. It's Bijan Robinson. It's one of the best running backs in the entire class in the past 15 to 20 years. Bijan Robinson out here just running over people. Elusive, great stiff arm, fantastic spin move, amazing cuts, vision that is beyond his years. And on top of all of this, a good pass protector and also a good pass catcher. So all of those things together, with a Tyler Algier, with a Cordero Patterson, with a Caleb Huntley, no matter what order you want to put this in, and I don't think this is a bell cow offense. This is a running back by committee showroom. I've got the Lamborghini, I've got the Alfa Romero, I've got my S-Saline 7, I've got my Camaro. I've got my whole lineup in my garage, and it just depends on which one of these is sounds right today. It just depends on which one of these hums and purrs to me today, and I wanted to go take it out on the road, showcase it, say, yeah, I own this, I paid it, I made the down payments, I did the maintenance myself, this is how I roll as a person. While the rest of the league is out here very much in the identity or the idea that they need to be in these eco-friendly cars and pass as much as possible, because that's the type of league that we are supposedly, air quotes, in. Who said that? Who proclaimed that this league has suddenly abandoned the run? Who has decided? There's a great quote, actually, in Seven Deadly Sins, an anime, not a great anime, but a decent one, where this guy named Escanor, the Lion Sin of Pride, who is supposedly a good guy, but this is all dealing with some weird meddling stuff here, so stick with me. But there's this guy that he's fighting, and the guy has complete darkness, and Escanor's powers are complete light, sunlight, and so he tries to put out his sunlight. And Escanor, as the sun goes up into the sky, he gets stronger and stronger. And by noon, this guy is 12-foot tall, giant axe that nobody can pick up and burns you to death. And the guy goes, I finally put out your sun. And all the darkness just gets blown away. And Escanor goes, who decided that? Who decided that you would put out my sun? Who decided that this is how fate was going to be? Who decided that I was going to be beaten by you at this moment? And I think that correlates to some degree. It's a bit of a reach here, but who decided that this was a passing league? The Chiefs? What, because they revolutionized the passing game by spreading out the field? We've seen this before. It's not new. The run and gun has always been a thing. The spread offense has most likely always been a thing. And I don't say most likely as in I'm guessing. I say most likely as in there was always an identity for passing the ball. There was always a time that they were going to be passing the ball. This league, there is no nuance in this league. There's just tweaks and changes to the league. And everything in this league, whether you're using the tight end primarily, you're using a running back by committee, you're using a bell cow, you're spreading the field out with 5 wide, whether you've decided to play option, whether you decided to play RPO, whether you decided that you're going to go triple option, whether you decided to go wildcat. It just depends on whether or not you've caught onto the trend before others have caught onto the trend. And ladies and gentlemen, we've turned into a league that is soft. A league that does not have defenders that are big enough, strong enough, fast enough to be able to just play the run 30, 40 times a game. You get run over. You get tired. And nitty-gritty offensive lines and nitty-gritty running backs are currently there in the NFL at this very point in time. And Arthur Smith is bringing in the trend. And you saw it with Shanahan, although that had a mix of West Coast offense, so there is a difference there. But looking at a guy like Bijan Robinson, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because we could spend hours talking about how Bijan is this and Bijan is that, and with Tyler Algier, it can be this, that, and the third. But what Bijan Robinson does is balance out the pH in the pool. You know you're going to pass with Kyle Pitts. You know you're going to pass with Mac Hollins and Drake London, and you're even going to be passing to your running backs. But what you want to do is open up the screen game. What you want to do is be able to run the clock as much as physically possible in order to change teams into passing teams. What the NFL is currently promoting to play into the Falcons' strengths on defense that specifically they are trying to build, which is look at the additions of Jeff Okudah, look at the additions of Mike Hughes, look at the additions that they have with Jesse Bates. They're bringing in guys like Ellis, like Amayada, because they want to play with a line that has fewer guys that can get to the quarterback. And look at how many dudes, Bud Dupree, Floyd, they've got Grady. I mean, look at this line. It's not a line that's small. It's a line that has quite a bit of size to it and quite a lot of pass rushing potential. It doesn't have the guaranteed sack numbers, but it has potential to create problems. And those problems being turnovers, because this team is very good at creating turnovers. Put those things together, and you create an offense that runs all the time out, scores multiple times a game, and forces teams to go into this linear, nearsighted passing game that they have to catch up, so they have to score quick, and the only way to do that is to move the ball down the field in quick and in spread fashion, which plays into the Falcons' hands of playing multiple DBs on the field. So early on in games, you'll see the Falcons end up trying to stop the run, clog the box, not allow teams to get those moments. Three and out will be huge. Turnovers will be huge. And then handing the ball to a team that dynamically can throw. A guy like Desmond Ridder out here can make those throws, but primarily go out and run the ball, run clock, chew the game up. And when you score once, twice, maybe even 3 times, now you're looking at an Atlanta Falcons organization that has forced you, a team that has forced you, the opposition, the opposing team, to become very linear. You are now forced to throw this ball and throw it into a set of DBs who are all ball hawks. We'll get to the addition of Clark Phillips III, CB from Utah, round 4 pick 113 from Tennessee's trade in just a little bit. But by adding Bijan, you take the pressure off of Cordero Patterson and off of Tyler Algier and allow Bijan Robinson to then take over games. Play action becomes heavy, and then you also be able to open up the screen game because you don't really want Tyler Algier to have to run screens. That's not his repertoire. That's not what makes Tyler Algier good. Tyler Algier is good because he can run through guys and get multiple touches. Caleb Huntley and Cordero Patterson are good, and they can catch passes, but they're primarily used in a rotation to keep everyone fit, healthy, and fresh in order to continue to smash the wall over and over and create a dynamic play where you go from gaining 3 yards and 4 yards a gain to a 15-yard pop or a 20 or 30-yard pop or even something that takes it straight to the house because you have guys that while they don't have incredible speed, and this is the same thing with Bijan, they don't have breakaway crazy speed, but when you grind teams down that don't have the defensive personnel to withhold you, to stop you from doing what you're doing, that's why you draft Bijan Robinson. You create a mismatch that is what people would consider old-style football, and they're expecting a Bijan Robinson to be the bell cow that gets the ball every single time, but you're looking at a Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson and even a Caleb Huntley or an Avery Williams who will now get to work slow and steady and then utilize play action and obviously shotgun to be able to go down the field and hit guys like Kyle Pitts because you're now trying to put a lot of people on the line. Drake London because you're now probably playing more man-to-man than you are playing zone. And if you are playing zone, it's only because you want guys to come creep down in the box and stop the run. So please, by all means, play zone because we have plenty of guys who attack zone well. And most of these dudes, most of the guys that we currently have on this roster are all high point catchers. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Mac Hollins, all high point catchers. None of these guys are body catchers. All these dudes make tough catches. Add in the fact that, obviously like guys like JJ Arcega-Whiteside are coming in and training at our camp, and there's tons of invites and tons of dudes that are potentially going to get an opportunity. Then the first pick makes complete and utter sense. Now, let's get on to other things. Round 2, pick 38, Matthew Bergeron. Offensive tackle out of Syracuse, left side offensive tackle, is potentially being moved to left guard. And we've talked about this over and over and over and over and over again about how can the Falcons fix the situation at left guard without having to use a first-round pick on it, because if you continue to use first-round picks, it's not changing your situation. You need guys in rounds 2, 3, 4 that are going to pick up the slack, become gems, and sign decent contracts that allow you to be able to move pieces on the offensive line, especially knowing that right tackle situation with a Caleb McGarry is probably a 1-year, 2-year thing. And Lindstrom is going to be here for the long term. You don't know what center is going to be, but Hennessy played well enough for you to be able to say, that's good enough. Run game-wise, above average. Pass game-wise, enough for us to be able to get Desmond Ridder the ball down the field to his target. Add in Bergeron, who's a very nasty run blocker, and someone who in the passing game has had above average statistics. And then, of course, Jake Matthews, who can be able to lean on a Matthew Bergeron and vice versa, Matthew Bergeron leaning on Jake Matthews for great wisdom on how they're going to utilize this offensive line. We take for granted Jake Matthews being here year after year after year after year after year. But with such continuity at left tackle, it makes it so that it's so much easier for you to then just go, it's not justification. It literally just states that we can take Bijan round 1 and go, we have a dynamic group of running backs and a Matthew Bergeron who's very good at what he does, kicking inside where, his arm length, his anchor, all of those things work much better, and he can play off of those archetypes. He can play off of the players around him, and it makes it so that it is an upgrade at a decent price. just want to pause for just 1 second and say thank you so much to the chat, and I hope that everybody is doing well. If you guys have any questions or comments, please make sure that you guys hit us up. In the live chat here, or in the comments section, obviously, to this video, or on Twitter. So, as the Falcons continue to build and move forward for this new look, this new identity, and people have, oh, Bijan's going to be a runner. Well, what about as a passer? As a pass catcher? As someone who's going to be able to go down the field and be able to take the underneath stuff, but also be able to go deep? This is definitely starting, and I know that most of you have probably already caught on, or at least were saying it to some degree in your minds when this pick was made. But if the Shanahan offensive scheme, which Arthur Smith obviously was part of that learning tree, that family tree of learning that particular system, if Kyle Shanahan can do it, and Arthur Smith can do it with a really big lead back in Tennessee, then creating that continuity to what San Francisco has done, multiple guys that can run the ball, playmakers, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuels, multiple young dudes that can run the ball with dynamic pace, an offensive line that's built for this specific style of ball, and a passing attack that's West Coast, whereas Arthur Smith wants to stretch the field and make you high point catch things. I think that dynamic creates a lot for Atlanta with picks 1 in Bijan Robinson and pick 2 with Matthew Bergeron. I like both picks, but they're not sexy. They're not shiny bag of nickels. They're not fun to watch when you look at the grand scheme of how the defense is built and all the pieces that are needed to make it work. And plus, we can get into a whole discussion about Desmond Ridder and why the entire topic of Desmond Ridder is overplayed, overblown, and that the Falcons also have completely left themselves open for opportunities in next year's draft or the draft after to go grab a quarterback, especially if they have a better record or if Desmond Ridder doesn't look good. It's wide open for Falcons fans, and the opportunity is there to enjoy what Desmond Ridder is able to accomplish for you. Maybe he's not Matt Ryan. Maybe he's not Michael Vick. Maybe he's not Chris Chandler, but maybe he's just Ryan Tannehill, and that's good enough. Maybe he's just Desmond Ridder, and that's good enough for him. That's good enough for the team. That's good enough for Atlanta. Maybe fans don't want to hear that. They want to be all over the papers. Well, let's talk about it for a second. Desmond Ridder in 4 games, and I've been sent this message multiple times, had slightly worse stats than Marcus Mariota through 13 games. Is that a detriment on Desmond Ridder, or is that a detriment on Marcus Mariota to take 13 straight games and not do diddly squat with it? In an offense that supports, is dummy-proof to any quarterback who were to play, including Heineke. So, explain to me the distrust, the disapproval of the fan base to Desmond Ridder outside of the fact that in 4 games, a rookie was able to go out and have a 2-2 record and have slightly, and look at the stats. Look at the stats for yourself. A slightly worse QBR, pass attempts, all these other individual stats in 4 games versus a guy who's had 13 opportunities and won 5 of them and lost 8 of them and looked like a goofball on an individual basis. But on a team-wide statistical outlook, Mariota looked way worse than what Desmond Ridder was able to provide in 4 games. Obviously, Drake London's stats went through the roof. The running game had a better time from its 4 games with Desmond Ridder versus its 13 games with Marcus Mariota. We're looking at the law of averages here, not the overarching full-bodied statistic. If you do that, you're a simple-minded mathematician. If you look at Atlanta in that small lens, and people don't like looking at small lenses, the fan base doesn't like, and the media continues to stoke that fire, by the way, because it's not just the media as its own individual spearhead to make sure that the fans don't like what's going on. They are the ones stoking the fire to keep the fan base going with this particular narrative about how the quarterbacks for the Atlanta Falcons are not good. They did it with Ryan. They did it with Vic. Vic overcame that. Ryan probably is going to end up getting some type of Hall of Fame or at least Ring of Honor statistics and is going to go down as one of the top 10 quarterbacks in NFL history for the next 10 to 20 years until somebody ends up actually pushing him down the list. But he has already beaten the likes of a ridiculous amount of great quarterbacks, passing, QBR, quarterback rating, touchdowns. Guy's a legend. He put his name in the books. But the media didn't like him. They didn't like Marcus Mariota. They don't like Desmond Ridder. They didn't like Chris Chandler. And the only other quarterback that has overcome all of this has been Michael Vick, but that's only because of the fad that was the running quarterback as it began to become a real thing. This is not a hate speech thing against Michael Vick or anyone else as far as sports are concerned. This is what the media projects, how they influence fans, and then how fans ride with that information and use it as gospel. So if you use the gospel of football from the media, you're going to end up getting small lenses and a big picture. But the small lenses are very, very much the narrative that the media wants you to buy into. When you look at it at a bigger picture, but you look at the minute details, not just what the picture is and whether or not it was painted good, but who painted it, what style of painting was it, and then look at the painting as a whole and enjoy the painting, you then start going, okay, maybe this is for me or maybe this isn't for me. But there is no choice when you listen to national media because they are there to sell stories and get clicks. That is just the end of the discussion when it comes to the media. So the fans are not the media is not to be the focal point of how things are being projected because the fans are buying it and they're selling it out to other fans. So the fans are not trustworthy in that realm. They just want wins, but I can't give them any more slack anymore about how they treat the organization and how they treat every pick and how they treat our way of building things because it's only been positivity up to this point with the obvious elephant in the room being that we don't have a franchise quarterback. Outside of that, running game got better, defense got better, and yes, they weren't statistically the best sack team in the league, but this defense has gotten better as a whole from a talent evaluation perspective and a team building perspective. Deny it all you want, but at the end of the day, the Falcons have actually trained real players to create depth on this roster. We definitely went through that in 2015, so I don't understand how you guys have forgotten. Not specifically the people that are listening to this particular show, but to Falcons fans in general. That's why the addition of the third-round pick number 75, Zach Harrison, edge out of Ohio State, who doesn't have all of the intangibles, doesn't have all the athleticism, isn't one of those, oh my goodness, this guy is going to wreck people type of players, but is more of probably going to be in the league for 10 to 15 years as just a great substitute and a great guy that can stop the run and get initial pressure. Zach Harrison's going to be a great instrument for this Atlanta Falcons organization to create depth on a roster that has definitely needed it in this particular position. It's not a flashy pick. It's not the defensive end that I would have picked. But learning behind Campbell and the wealth of knowledge that Campbell is willing to give. And by the way, remember, we have Campbell, we have Bud Dupree, we have Grady Jarrett, AK's out there. They've got the guys to create pressure and bring quarterback down. The question is it the sack numbers that need to go up, or is it the turnover and down and distant numbers that need to go up? And I think people forget that. 3 and outs are incredibly important. How many times do you see teams go just immediately 3 and out? Not many. The worst of the worst teams with really bad offensive lines or bad schematical playbooks end up being the ones that go 3 and out the most. But on average, there aren't many teams that they went 3 and out and they turned the ball over to the other team, they punted away. That just doesn't happen in this league. There's a lot of scoring in this league. So when you look at this Falcons team and go, it's one that I think predicates 3 and outs and turnovers more than it does specifically sack numbers, but maybe more tackle for loss numbers. And you put that into perspective of what the Falcons are building. I mean, look at this team. It's not built for speed rushing. It's built to collapse pockets and force quarterbacks to throw into multiple coverage where the ball is picked off by somebody in the backfield, a la Jesse Bates. Welcome to the Atlanta Falcons. And guys like Zach Harrison create a catch-all, a net for guys that can create pressure, are power rushers, and are pocket collapsers. And guys that also create turnovers. Look at the ability for him to create strip sacks. He's done multiple. But that plays into the discussion of Clark Phillips, 4th-round pick, number 113 from the Tennessee trade, where the Atlanta Falcons are taking him out of Utah. He's a great slot corner and could even play outside, but what he's being brought in here to do is be the guy that beats out Hughes for that job. Specifically speaking, that Clark Phillips could be the starter for the Atlanta Falcons going forward because he's also a turnover guy. He's a jump the route, blanket a guy, and create a turnover for his teammates. And then the Falcons didn't have any more picks until the 7th round when you talk about all 4 of those picks, Bijan, Matthew Bergeron, Zach Harrison, Clark Phillips. And you look at them as that's the bulk of guys that are going to get starts, going to be pushed to be starters, and are going to be part of the major system here in 2023. You look at DeMarco Helms, and you say, you hope that he develops into something, safety out of Alabama, pick number 224, round 7. You hope that he turns into something. You hope that he turns into an integral piece that can back up Richie Grant or even beat Richie Grant for his spot. But you don't look at him as a guy that's going to end up just, year 1, he's getting the starts. This is a depth signing. Javon Gwynn, guard out of South Carolina, has been brought in here for no more than being a body that potentially makes the team because of the statistical value that he has, the positional value that he has, and the Falcons see something in a gem in him and say, this guy could be a guard center for us going forward. And if Matthews is cut next year, which I doubt happens, but I keep the door open for, that Bergeron could be moved to tackle and Gwynn could be moved to guard. Or another guard could be drafted in the near future, especially if Desmond Ridder ends up turning out to be the guy that the franchise is going to stick with going forward. If he has a good statistical year, if the Falcons do make it to the playoffs, which I expect them to compete specifically with the schedule we're about to talk about for the division, then there's no doubt in my mind that the Falcons will not be QB hunting. They will be looking elsewhere. And guard becomes another discussion. Even center becomes a discussion. Remember, Kyle Shanahan and company wanted to bring in an experienced veteran at center, knowing that that was going to be the edge that would take them to the Super Bowl, and it did turn out to be one of the integral pieces that got the Falcons to the Super Bowl because the guy could call the plays, call the protections, and make the quality blocks that were needed of him to make Freeman and Coleman a disaster for opposing defensive coordinators. Now, fast forward, the Falcons are doing the exact same thing here. A good right-hand side of the line, a leaky interior to left, and you know that you have a left tackle that's going to be here until you tell him to go. No other way possible. And Matthew Bergeron fits the build of what you want here, and maybe even fits the build too well at left guard. Now you have guys like Gwynn and Dahlman who can potentially continue to learn and grow and mature behind a line that's going to be gritty. It's a gritty offensive line that's going to be used with a running back by committee look, and Cordero Patterson now becomes an even more important pass catcher in this offense with Caleb Huntley still in the roster and potentially becoming the third running back if Cordero Patterson becomes the third or fourth pass-catching option behind guys like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Mac Hollins, which this is another thing that I want to bring up is that I don't think that we need to continue to blow up the fact that the Falcons aren't bringing in a true number 3 wide receiver, whereas the options for pass catching will be plentiful to multiple guys at multiple positions, and that there will be no hierarchy on wide receiver 1, 2, 3 and who will get those catches. Because as long as Kyle Pitts is here, he becomes the second option or number 1 option based on the formations you supply defensive coordinators. You tell them this is what we're going to do, and then you run multiple guys out on a couple wheel routes and comebacks, and you destroy opposing DBs because you force teams to get into a heavy set, and then you spring guys out and attack areas that are open with pass catchers that come from multiple different positions. Are we currently getting close to the positionless football team? A positionless football organization where the only major positions are offensive line and quarterback, where tight end, wide receiver, and running back all become similar. They all become meshed. They blend into the same position. Tight ends become H-backs, which also becomes wide receivers, which also become running backs, which also become traditional wideouts. And wideouts become those things as well, and running backs become those things as well. You're looking for guys that can do balance. You're not looking for super speeders. You're not looking for guys that are 20 feet tall. You're not looking for guys that can just blow a block up. You're looking for absolute and total balance, which creates so many opportunities for you to score from an offensive coordinator position, because what you're looking at is everybody can do a little bit of something, and that gives you options everywhere on the field. There's something open somewhere. That was my alarm for when I was supposed to wake up. And, I decided to stream anyway. So let's go over the Falcons' schedule, because I'm going to give you a grade on this draft. I don't usually do grades. I don't like doing that because I need to see how these players fit. I don't know if DeMarco or if Javon will stay on this team. I don't know if Clark Phillips will become the slot corner. At least we project him to be there. I don't know if Zach Harrison is going to stick with his squad with multiple guys getting opportunities. How far down the depth chart will he be? Will Matthew Bergeron be able to solidify that left guard position and be the starter that they're expecting him to be, or will he have to earn that spot? And will Bijan Robinson be the guy that's toting the rock every single down, or will Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier get the heavy split? We project it to be a running back by committee because we know that Bijan is a pass catcher, and we know that Cordero is a pass catcher, and we know that Tyler Algier has caught passes from Desmond Ridder last year and has succeeded and excelled and done well. So it's open to interpretation because there's nothing to tie down or to nail down on the ship mast that we know is for sure because of how positionless this team is. There's nobody that's specifically this position or they're going to do this job. Because if you have Deebo Samuel and you have Brandon Ayuk and you have Christian McCaffrey and you have what's his name, the fullback out of San Francisco, and you have George Kittle, Usek. If you have all those dudes, are they running backs? Are they wide receivers? Are they tight ends? Who knows? But they're going to line up somewhere on the field, and they're going to end up exposing you somewhere on the field, as long as you have a decent quarterback that can deliver the ball. Specifically, dummy-proofing the offense. We talked about this just a little while ago. You dummy-proof the offense to make it a good running offense, and that it can still gain yards even if it's the only thing that's working for you. But you've opened up the doors, Pandora's box, to every single possibility in a pass-catching sense, from your running backs to your tight ends to your wide receivers. The only reason why they're on a roster and they're given a specific position is because you have to fill out a roster, a depth chart, and say, well, you're the wide receiver one. But it doesn't mean that you won't play in the slot or you be potentially a Y when we want you to be, because every single one of the guys that the Falcons have picked up are good blockers. It's a team chemistry movement, and it's not a very good fantasy option, and that's why if you're a fantasy football player and you go out there and you want to, pick all these Falcons options, sell Falcons players to other teams. Get them to buy in to Bijan Robinson's going to be amazing. Tyler Algier is not going to have all his touches carried away, and he, with that experience of a 1,000-yard season, he will be out there to get blood. Cordero Patterson is still a great flex option if you want some points, and he will score touchdowns this year. Kyle Pitts will be 100% healthy. That's still something to determine, but you can get multiple second or first-round draft choices if you're playing Dynasty. And Drake London, who has amazing chemistry already with Desmond Ridder. Sell. Go get other quality upper echelon players. If you are in a Dynasty league, go sell these Falcons players out to others. And keep one, if not two, guys that you know will score multiple times. Even sell Desmond Ridder if you can sell him off. If you're in a double QB league, sell him for a third or second round draft choice in 2024. Get the sell on, because you're going to want these guys to produce heavily, but you know that there's no position on this roster. It's positionless football. Let's take a look at the Falcons 2023 NFL schedule. But to give this draft a grade, I go B+. Bijan looks like the real deal. Matthew Bergeron looks like a guy that I definitely want to see grow and mature. Zach Harrison looks like the type of nitty-gritty defensive end we've been asking for, just maybe not as talented or as very boom or bust for Zach Harrison. Clark Phillips looks like the real deal, and I don't know how we got him in the fourth round. And then DeMarco and Javon look like projects that will be, either short-term, you just didn't show us what we were looking for, no harm, no foul, seventh-round picks, or they will turn into rotational or even potentially 3 years down the road starters, guys that you can definitely rely in to get the job done. So B, I give it a B+. I think it definitely, after the free agents period that we had, and in the fact that we'll have close to $60 to $70 million next year in cap space, which is also redonk, you've completely left the door wide open for the Falcons to still add more veterans and great talent in the offseason and have a great draft next year with the Calvin Ridley pick, which could still turn into a second-round pick. Currently a third. We have 2/3 next year. Wild. Let's look at the 2023 Atlanta Falcons NFL draft, 2023 regular season schedule, which released yesterday. How many people were excited about potential primetime games? I want to see a show of hands in the chat. I definitely want to see a show of hands in the chat if you haven't already. Make sure that you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to be notified of all the stuff that we're going to be doing. try to stay relatively one show a week if I can get it. But I'm working my ass off and trying to move into a different lifestyle here. But the NFL schedule for the Atlanta Falcons, after giving it a good look, and there's still 2 games, Week 15 and Week 18, that are to be determined on their times, since the NFL is trusting Vegas that the Panthers will be good and that the Saints will be decent. Those might turn into flex primetime games, Sunday or Monday or Thursday. Could even be a Saturday, potentially. And when you look at the schedule, Panthers Week 1, Packers Week 2, both at home. Going to Detroit in September. And then going to the Jags in London on a Sunday. 9:30 a.m. game. Make sure you guys check that out, October 1st. So that's considered an away game. So we did not lose a home game, ladies and gentlemen. Can I just say this for a second? The Falcons did not lose a home game by going to London. It's considered a home game for the Jags. So our away game is in London in October, when the weather is good, where it might rain, and we play as a rushing team. I laugh. I joke. The Kings of London, the Jaguars, may be getting their asses handed to them. But Panthers, Packers at home, games 1, game 2. Who knows if Jordan Love is going to be the guy, but we'll know week 2 whether or not the Falcons are going to put him in fits. We got Goff at home in Detroit, and we've got to play against, I think, the sneaky Jags team, but potentially going to get beat up by Atlanta if we're on a roll. Could be our first major loss of the season against the Jags in Wembley. But okay, I digress. At home against the Texans, 1 p.m. game. By the way, every single game has been a 1 p.m. up to this point, except for the Wembley game at 9:30. So let's go down the list together. Texans at home, 1 p.m. The following week, Commanders at home, 1 p.m. game. At the Buccaneers, October 22nd, 1 p.m. game. And at the Titans, the 29th, 1 p.m. game. So up to this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. 8 games in. 10 games left. And the Falcons have yet to play, outside of Trevor Lawrence, a top quarterback. I guess you could call Jared Goff a top quarterback if you say that you believe in trends, because this should be the year that the Lions, under Jared Goff, based on his past trends, 3 years in, and then he takes a team to the playoffs. 3 years in now, and the Lions potentially are going to compete for this division. If you believe the Lions and Jared Goff is the challenge, the first major challenge, Panthers with Bryce Young, going to start probably week 1. Packers with Jordan Love, week 2, both at home in ATL. Jared Goff, 3rd game, and then Trevor Lawrence, 4th game. That's where the tough quarterbacks come into play, because C.J. Stroud is probably going to be the quarterback for the Texans come week 5. Week 6 against the Commanders. Who's the Commanders' quarterback right now? Who's currently the guy in Washington? I can't even think of who the guy is in Washington. Is it Wentz? Maybe a Washington Commanders fan can slap me over the head and tell me you're a dummy. Why are you talking about this? But I look at the Commanders in Atlanta, and I go, that's not much of a challenge, man. I'm not scared of the Commanders, bro. Really not. That's not even off-season optimism. Don't fall into the trap of off-season optimism. that leads you down the Sarlacc pit. Don't be Boba Fett and be overconfident and fall into the Sarlacc pit and stay in there for months at a time in misery because your team suddenly you were super optimistic and then injuries happen and things of that nature. But I look at the Commanders and I say there's really not anything there. And then you got to go to the Buccaneers. So at this point, it will either be Baker Mayfield still pushing that team along, chugging, or it will be Kyle Trask. So you tell me which one you're the most afraid of, because I'm not. Maybe Baker. But is that just because of familiarity? Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. Okay, all right, cool. Will it be Will Levis or will it be Ryan Tannehill? If it's Levis, I'm not scared. If it's Tannehill, depends on how our defense looks. Vikings at home. This is where we stop playing back-to-back games away and home. So notice, back-to-back home games, back-to-back away games, back-to-back home games, back-to-back away games, and then you finally get to see the Vikings at home. Kirk Cousins and the Vikings are supposedly the team right now that in the NFC North are the front runners to win that division. I wouldn't be surprised. But I see the Vikings as a middling team right now. They don't even really scare me. And those are all 1 p.m. games, so at this point, nothing has really gotten me, oh no, I'm frightened. Now you go to Arizona to go play against the Cardinals at a 4:05 game. Okay, you finally changed up, but it's only because you've gone off to the West Coast. Only because you've gone off to the West Coast, and that technically is like a 1 p.m. game for them. Because it is technically a 1 p.m. game for them. And I'm not scared of Kyler Murray and his little booty shorts. I'm Kyler Murray. I run around, throw the ball. Okay, listen, short stack. Unless you can get that together, you're one of the worst rosters in the NFL. And at this point, 8, 9, 10 games into the season, if y'all ain't doing it, oh boy. And then the Falcons get the perfect bye. Week 11. Yes, it hurts that you have to go to Wembley and then come back, but you get to play home against the Texans and the Commanders after that Wembley game against the Jags. It's not even a home game. It's an away game. It counts as an away game. You played every game at home, actually in the bins. Be grateful. So the Falcons end up playing against the Cardinals in Arizona and then get a bye in Week 11. You get to sit there Week 11 knowing what kind of team you are, whether or not you're going to the draft or you're going to the playoffs. Week 11 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games left. Where anything can change after 7 games, brother. After the bye, you get to come home. You get to stay home. 1 p.m. game, November 26th, against the New Orleans Saints. The first time you're playing them all year. At home. And if the Falcons have been hot at any point in here, you know that game's going to be hopping at the bins. And maybe the game that I might actually be looking to try to go to. Now, here's where things get tricky. You're playing an away game against the Jets the following week, 1 p.m., December 3rd. It's cold. It's snowy. Sleet. Rain. It's not grass. It's AstroTurf. And it's against Aaron Rodgers and or Zach Wilson. Most likely Aaron Rodgers, who might have his team chugging just enough to stay relevant for their current division. So I'm expecting the Jets to be a little scarier than usual. And we've always struggled mightily against the Jets week in and week out, year in and year out. It hasn't been a fun team for us to play. Follow that up by being at home against the Buccaneers. So you went to the Bucs early in the season, and now when things are cold, you get to go to your Ben Stadium, stay warm, and try to play against the Buccaneers there and beat them. Could be the deciding factor in what the Falcons end up doing for their division. That's the game. Circle it. Buccaneers, December 10th, 1 p.m. Now, depending on what the Panthers are doing and how good they are, you have to go to Carolina and go play them in Week 15. Time has not been determined. But if they're good, that's a 4 p.m. or later game. Could be a primetime game for them. Follow that up by being at home against the Colts, so you don't have to go to Indianapolis. You get to play the Colts at home. And then the one that everybody has circled on their list, at least that I've seen the media circle on their list, which is December 31st at 1 p.m. against the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. That's the one game that everybody's terrified about. That Falcons fans that I see on the message boards, that I see on Twitter, that I see in the media are talking about. The Bears at home, potentially in the snow, at 1 p.m. on a Sunday. Followed up by, that's right, back-to-back away games. Week 18, to be determined. No date, no current time slot for this game. Could be flexed to a Sunday night game if the Falcons are good enough and the Saints are good enough. Carr is a problem. Derek Carr is a problem. But the Saints to end the year in New Orleans, man, would I love to send them packing home or send them to the wild card spot and play us again, or make them the 6th or 7th seed in the wild card spot and they have to go play the 1 or the 2 or the 3, however they've currently positioned and put it together. But, buddy, I would love to see New Orleans have to play us and they have to win and get in. And the Falcons have some semblance of a locked-up divisional win here at this point. We could both be playing for a spot in the playoffs. But I can see the Falcons ending up as that team that knocks the Saints out Week 18 or has already shored this up and is already resting their starters. Could be the opposite for us, and we're playing to try to get in. And New Orleans is the one that's trying to just shop and sit and wait and get ready for the playoff push. Whatever it may be, the old toilet bowl will be the final game of the season. But not a single primetime game. No Thursday nights. No Monday nights. No Sunday nights. No Saturdays. It's as plain Jane, it is as whitewashed, it is as bland of a schedule that you could possibly have, but also plays perfectly into a team that's trying to currently rebuild and get themselves to that spot into their hands to win games, manage their season, and understand it's not just week to week. It is week to week. That's your mentality to think about how to play games. But to look at a schedule as a whole and go, there's this section, and then there's this section, and then there's this section, and these are the important parts that we need to be able to be ready for, mentally prepare. Going to the Bears, going to New Orleans, going to the Jets, going to Wembley. You have to look at these games and go, they're very, very important for us. Going out west to the Cardinals. It's really our only game out west. Think about that for a second. The Cardinals are the only game that we have to go out of our time zone for. If you look at the schedule as a whole, this is nothing to be worried about. And plays specifically into the hands of a rushing team that wants to run the ball late in the season. And if they find their identity, potentially just pass and torch you for multiple points early in a game. The Falcons know that their deficiencies are currently that the end of the year is their worst time of the year. But becoming a rushing attack makes you balanced and also think of your end of the year differently, especially if you're playing in cold weather, outdoor games, late into the winter months, late in the fall times. So when I look at the schedule, I say there's really nothing here that specifically scares me and makes me overly excited. But man, does this schedule make me glad that the Falcons are building something important and that they didn't take it for granted. And that they know what they're doing. That they've built the team this particular way. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for joining the show today. Make sure you share this out to your friends and family. Post it up wherever it needs to be heard. I hope I said some stuff that opened your eyes a little bit and kind of gave you a different thought process of what they're currently doing in Atlanta. It's been an absolute honor and blessing to continue to come on here and talk to you guys and support you guys and be able to create a fantastic community. So I just want to say thank you, Lord Jesus, for this opportunity to come on here and talk with every individual, to be able to put the blessing of God out to every single individual, bless their days, and be able to come on here and do what we do to talk about this game and talk about the entertainment value of everything that we're talking about today. I want to send blessings to all the single players that are out there, every single one of the guys that are on the 90-man roster right now for the Atlanta Falcons, and even those that are trying to get onto the practice squad, that they continue to learn, mature, grow, and do great things. In Jesus' name. Amen. Y'all have a blessed day. Rise up, stay grounded, peace, and hair grease. And I'll see you guys again real soon for our next episode of Unintentional Grounding live from Orlando, Florida. Later, everybody.